The yacht didn't just explode. It shattered the night into 1,000 burning pieces that rained down on the black water like dying stars. I saw it from the research station's dock, half a mile out, the fireball painting the ocean orange for 3 terrible seconds before darkness swallowed everything again. My first instinct wasn't heroic. It was pure, visceral terror that froze my legs mid-step and turned my stomach to ice. Because 15 years ago, I watched my 6-year-old brother Danny sink to the bottom of a community pool, his little body going limp in water that should have been safe, and I'd spent every day since then preparing for the moment I could save someone the way I'd saved him. Rescue certifications. Marine biology degree focused on ocean safety. Night shifts at this coastal research station where I could monitor the water, understand it, control it. But nothing prepares you for the moment when preparation meets reality and you have to choose, stay safe on shore or dive into hell. I chose hell. My hands moved on autopilot, grabbing the emergency kit from the supply room, my wetsuit half-zipped as I sprinted down the dock, the research boat's engine roaring to life under my shaking fingers. The radio crackled with distant chatter, someone reporting the explosion. But I was already cutting through black water toward the debris field, my spotlight scanning wreckage that was still smoking, still sinking. That's when I saw him. A man, face down in the water, one arm tangled in what used to be part of a rail, blood spreading dark around his head, not moving, not breathing. I killed the engine 20 feet out, couldn't risk the propeller hitting debris or him, and dove. The water was colder than I expected, September ocean biting through my wetsuit as I kicked hard toward him. My CPR training screamed the statistics. Every second without oxygen meant brain damage, meant death, meant I was already too late. But I'd pulled Danny out after 90 seconds underwater and he'd lived, so I shoved the panic down and focused on what I could control. Getting him free from the twisted metal took precious seconds. His jacket was caught, arm pinned at an angle that made me wince. I worked the fabric loose with hands that remembered every rescue drill, every simulation. And when he finally came free, I wrapped one arm around his chest and kicked for the surface. He was heavy, dead weight in a way that made my lungs burn and my legs scream. But I'd carried Danny's limp body out of that pool, and I could carry this stranger now. Had to, because the alternative was unthinkable. Breaking the surface felt like resurrection. I gasped air, dragged him to the boat, used every ounce of strength I had left to haul him over the side. He landed on the deck with a wet thud that made me flinch. Too rough. But there was no gentle way to save a drowning man. CPR. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. His chest was solid under my palms, ribs intact despite the explosion. But his lips were blue and his skin was too cold and he wasn't breathing. "Come on," I muttered, compressing harder. Danny's face flashed behind my eyes, 6 years old and pale, water streaming from his mouth as I'd pressed on his little chest in that pool, and I shoved the memory away. "Don't you dare die on me. Breathe." 30 compressions, 2 breaths, check for pulse. Nothing. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. My arms were shaking now, adrenaline crashing into exhaustion. And then he choked. Water erupted from his mouth in a violent gush as his body convulsed, rolling onto his side, coughing and gasping and alive. I steadied him, one hand on his shoulder, my own breathing ragged with relief so intense it made me lightheaded. His eyes opened. Dark eyes, almost black in the spotlight's glare, sharp with awareness even through the pain and confusion. He stared at me like he was cataloging every detail of my face, memorizing me, and something in that gaze made my stomach flip. "Who?" His voice was wrecked, raw from seawater. "Don't talk," I cut him off, already reaching for the first aid kit. "You're bleeding badly. Stay still." He didn't argue, just watched me with that unnerving intensity as I examined the head wound. Deep gash above his left temple, would need stitches. His pupils were even, though, no sign of concussion. Small mercies. Getting him back to the research station felt like it took hours. In reality, maybe 10 minutes. I radioed ahead to the night supervisor, told him I had a survivor from the explosion who needed immediate medical attention, and by the time I docked, there was a stretcher waiting. But the stranger, this man whose name I didn't even know yet, refused it. "I can walk," he said, voice still rough but steady. Determined. "You have a head injury and possible hypothermia. You should—" "I can walk." He pushed himself upright, swayed once, then locked his knees and stayed vertical through sheer stubbornness. I recognized that look. Danny wore it every time he refused help getting to the bathroom. Every time he insisted on walking to the hospital cafeteria himself, even when his oxygen levels were dangerously low. Pride in the face of vulnerability. Strength borrowed from spite. "Fine," I said. "But if you pass out, I'm not carrying you again. You're too damn heavy." The corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Noted. The research station's medical bay wasn't much. A glorified closet with a cot, supplies, equipment for treating minor injuries, and stabilizing major ones until real help arrived. But I'd stitched plenty of cuts during my time here, cleaned plenty of wounds, and my hands were steady, despite the adrenaline still singing through my veins. He sat on the cot while I worked, silent except for the occasional sharp inhale when the needle went through. I'd offered local anesthetic, but he'd refused, said he wanted to stay alert. Paranoid or practical, I couldn't tell. 12 stitches, I said finally, tying off the last suture. "You'll have a scar." "Won't be my first." His voice was quieter now, exhaustion creeping in. "Or my last." I stepped back, stripped off my gloves, studied him properly for the first time. Mid-30s, maybe late. Dark hair plastered to his skull, sharp features that would be handsome once the pallor of near-death faded, expensive clothes ruined by salt water and blood. The watch on his wrist was still ticking. Waterproof, probably cost more than my car. "What happened out there?" I asked. His eyes met mine, flat, guarded. "Someone tried to kill me." The words hung in the air between us, too heavy for the small room. "Did they succeed?" I asked, aiming for lightness and missing. "No." His gaze didn't waver. "You saved my life." I shrugged, turned away to clean up the medical supplies. Anyone would have done the same. "No." The certainty in his voice made me pause. "They wouldn't have. Most people would have called the Coast Guard and stayed safe on shore. You came out into the debris field, dove into black water, pulled me out yourself. That's not anyone. That's you." Heat crawled up my neck. I didn't know how to respond to that kind of intensity, that kind of attention. I work in marine rescue. It's literally my job. At a research station, not search and rescue. He leaned forward slightly, wincing from what were probably cracked ribs. "You didn't have to, but you did. Why?" The answer sat heavy on my tongue. Because 15 years ago I watched my baby brother almost die, and I've spent every day since preparing to save someone else. Because I'm terrified of being helpless again. Because drowning is my nightmare, and my obsession, and I can't let it win. Because someone was drowning, and I could help, I said instead. He studied me for a long moment, something ancient and certain settling into his expression. "What's your name?" "Sienna Walsh." "Sienna." He repeated it slowly, like he was tasting each syllable, memorizing the shape of it. "Alessandro Vitale. But people call me Sandro." "Sandro," I echoed. "Italian?" "American, but my family's from Sicily. Old blood." Something dark flickered across his face. "Old enemies, too." "The people who blew up your yacht?" "Yes." "Are they going to come after you again?" "Probably." He said it so casually, like attempted murder was just an inconvenience. But that's not your problem. You saved my life, Sienna. I'm in your debt. The way he said it, debt, made it sound sacred, binding. You don't owe me anything, I said firmly. I did what anyone with a conscience would do. His expression said otherwise, but he didn't argue. Just leaned back against the wall, exhaustion finally winning. Can I stay here tonight, until my people can pick me up? I should have said no. Should have called the Coast Guard. Let professionals handle this stranger with his expensive watch and his enemies who planted bombs. But looking at him, pale and injured and somehow still radiating danger, I couldn't bring myself to kick him out. There's a spare cot in the supply room, I said, and I'll be monitoring you for signs of concussion anyway. So yes, you can stay. Thank you. He stood slowly, steadier now. For everything. I nodded, suddenly exhausted myself. Get some sleep. We'll figure out the rest in the morning. He left for the supply room without another word. I stayed in the medical bay, cleaning blood off the counters, replaying the rescue in my mind. The cold water, his limp weight, the terrible seconds before he'd started breathing again. I'd saved him. Pulled him back from death the way I'd pulled Danny back 15 years ago. So why did it feel like I'd just tied my life to his in ways I couldn't begin to understand? I didn't sleep that night. Kept checking on Sandro every hour. Concussion protocol, I told myself. Though truthfully, I just needed to see his chest rising and falling. Needed proof he was alive. Each time I cracked open the supply room door, he was either asleep or pretending to be. And I left without making a sound. By dawn, my eyes were gritty and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Adrenaline crash, delayed shock, the weight of what I'd done finally hitting. I made coffee in the tiny break room, watched the sun turn the ocean from black to gray to pale gold, and tried to convince myself that everything would go back to normal now. The door to the supply room opened. Sandro emerged looking better than he had any right to. Color back in his face, movements careful but controlled. He'd stripped off his ruined shirt and was just wearing dark pants and the bandage I'd wrapped around his ribs. Scars crossed his torso like a roadmap of violence. Knife wounds, bullet grazes, the fresh bruising from the explosion. I looked away, focused on my coffee. How are you feeling? Like I got blown up and drowned. He moved to the coffee pot, poured himself a cup. But alive. Thanks to you. You should see a real doctor. Get x-rays, make sure there's no internal bleeding. I will. My people are picking me up this morning. He sipped the coffee, made a face. It was research station sludge, barely drinkable. But first, I need to ask you something. What? Are you in danger because you saved me? The question caught me off guard. What? No, why would I be? Because the people who want me dead are thorough. If they find out someone pulled me from the water, they might consider that person an obstacle. His eyes were hard, serious. I can protect you, will protect you, but I need to know if you're safe. I'm nobody, I said. Just a marine biologist working night shifts. They have no reason to care about me. You're not nobody. He set down the coffee, stepped closer. You saved my life, Sienna. That makes you someone very important. At least to me. The intensity was back. That unsettling focus that made me feel seen in ways I wasn't used to. I stepped back. Needed space. I appreciate the concern, but I'm fine. Really. This was just a one-time thing. You go back to your life, I go back to mine, and we both forget this happened. I'm not going to forget. He said it quietly. Certain. And neither will my debt to you. Before I could respond, a phone rang. His, waterproof, and somehow still functioning. He answered in rapid Italian, his voice shifting from soft to commanding in seconds. When he hung up, his expression was all business. My people are here. I need to go. Okay. Relief and something else, disappointment, twisted in my chest. Take care of yourself. Sienna. He paused at the door. Thank you for my life. I won't forget what you did. Then he was gone, disappearing into a black SUV that peeled out of the parking lot like it was fleeing a crime scene, which I supposed it kind of was. I stood alone in the empty research station, watched the sun finish rising over the ocean, and told myself this was the end of it. I was wrong. 24 hours later, someone pounded on my apartment door at 8 a.m. I jerked awake. I'd worked the night shift again, hadn't gotten home until 6, and stumbled to the door in my sleep shirt and shorts, hair a mess, brain foggy with exhaustion. 4 men in suits stood in the hallway. Big men. Stone-faced men. The kind of men who made you think mob enforcer before businessman. Sienna Walsh? The one in front, older, graying temples, scar on his jaw, had a voice like gravel. Yes? My hand tightened on the door frame. Who are you? Matteo Rossi, head of security for Alessandro Vitale. He gestured to the other men, who were holding 2 large locked cases, heavy cases, from the way they were standing. Mr. Vitale asked us to deliver his gratitude for saving his life. Before I could process that, they were moving, stepping into my tiny apartment without invitation, placing the cases carefully on my scratched coffee table, their movements efficient and practiced. Wait, what is this? Tss. Matteo pulled out a business card, held it out. Thick paper, embossed letters, a phone number. Mr. Vitale's private line. He said to tell you the debt is paid with gratitude, and he hopes you'll accept this as a token of his appreciation. What's in the cases? $2 million. Cash. The words hit like a punch. My knees went weak. I grabbed the back of my ratty couch for support, stared at the cases like they might explode. $2 million. Are you insane? No, ma'am. Grateful. Matteo's expression didn't change. Mr. Vitale's life is worth far more. This is a fraction of what he'd pay to still be breathing. I can't. My brain couldn't form coherent thoughts. $2 million. In my apartment. On my coffee table. Next to a stack of medical bills from Danny's last hospital stay that I'd been ignoring because I couldn't afford to pay them. You can, Matteo said. And you will. It's already yours. He placed the business card on top of one case. Call if you need anything. We'll see ourselves out. They left as quickly as they'd arrived, the door closing with a soft click that sounded impossibly loud in the sudden silence. I stood frozen, staring at the cases, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. $2 million. More money than I'd ever seen. More than 5 years of Danny's treatments combined. More than student loans and rent and every financial nightmare that kept me up at night. My first instinct was to call Danny. Tell him we could finally afford the experimental drug trial his doctors kept mentioning. Pay off the care facility. Get him into a better hospital. Breathe for the first time in years. My second instinct made me want to vomit. Because this wasn't gratitude. This was payment. A transaction. Like my courage, my choice to risk my life could be reduced to a dollar amount. Like I'd saved him expecting a reward, calculating the worth of his life while I performed CPR. The thought made my skin crawl. I grabbed my phone, dialed the number on the card before I could second-guess myself. It rang twice. Sienna. Sandro's voice, warm and pleased. I'm glad you called. Did they? I don't want your money. Silence. Long enough that I thought he'd hung up. What? His tone shifted. Careful now. Surprised. I don't want your money, I repeated, louder, angrier. I'm not keeping it. Tell me where you are. Sienna. Where are you? More silence. Then, St. Catherine's Hospital. Private floor. But you don't need to. I hung up. It took me 20 minutes to drag the cases down to my beat-up Honda Civic. They were heavier than I'd expected, muscles screaming by the time I shoved the second one into my trunk. Another 15 to drive across the city to St. Catherine's, the private hospital where rich people went to have their near-death experiences in luxury. The lobby was marble and crystal chandeliers, and wealth so thick I could taste it. I must have looked insane, still in my sleep clothes, hair wild, dragging 2 locked cases across polished floors while security guards tensed. "I'm here to see Alessandro Vitale," I told the desk attendant. Her professional smile flickered. "I'm sorry, but Mr. Vitale isn't accepting visitors. Tell him Sienna Walsh is here, with his money. He'll want to see me." She made a call. 30 seconds later, Matteo appeared, looking resigned. "Miss Walsh, if you'll follow me." He led me to the elevator, up to the top floor where everything was quieter, more private. Guards stationed at intervals. Thick carpet that swallowed sound, a hallway that smelled like expensive flowers and antiseptic. He stopped at a door, knocked once. "She's here, with the cases." A pause. Then, "Let her in." Matteo opened the door, stepped aside. I dragged the cases past him, heard the door close softly behind me, and looked up to find Sandro sitting up in a hospital bed, bandaged but awake. I dumped the cases at the foot of his bed with a thud that made him wince. "I don't want your money." He stared at the cases, then at me, set down his phone slowly. "It's gratitude, not payment. There's a difference." "Not to me, there isn't." My voice shook with exhaustion and anger, and something I couldn't name. "You're putting a price tag on a human life, on my choice. I didn't save you for a reward. I saved you because someone was drowning and I could help." His eyes darkened, with respect, maybe, or something deeper. "Then what do you want?" I stopped, tried to collect thoughts that were scattered and raw. "I want you to stop trying to make what I did transactional. I want to go back to my life where mafia bosses don't explode on yachts in my jurisdiction. I want you to understand that not everything has a price." He watched me for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. "You're right." That stopped me. "What?" "You're right. I tried to pay a debt that can't be paid. Tried to reduce what you did to something simple when it was anything but." He shifted in the bed, wincing from ribs that were probably taped. "But I can't just do nothing, Sienna. I died on that yacht. You brought me back. How am I supposed to exist knowing someone saved me and won't let me repay it? You exist by living well, by not getting blown up again, by being grateful you're alive." I was so tired my words were starting to blur. "That's the debt. Just live. That's all I want." His expression cracked slightly, something vulnerable showing through. "Keep the money, not as payment, as a gift, because I want you to have options, security, whatever that means to you. I don't need your money to have security." "What about your brother?" The question hit like ice water. "What about him?" "Danny Walsh, 24, cystic fibrosis, in and out of hospitals his whole life. Medical debt you've been drowning in since you were 19. Sandro's voice was gentle, not threatening, just knowing. "You saved me, Sienna. Let me help save him." I should have been angry that he'd looked into my life, invaded my privacy. Instead, I just felt defeated, because he was right. Danny's care was crushing me, and that money could change everything. But taking it still felt wrong. "Keep it in your vault," I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not saying yes, but I'm not saying no. Just keep it. For now." He nodded slowly, understanding without pushing. "Okay. It'll be there whenever you're ready, even if that's never." I turned to leave, needed to get out before I started crying or screaming or both. Sienna. His voice stopped me at the door. Thank you. For coming here. For being honest. For being you. I didn't trust myself to respond. Just left. Walked past Mateo's knowing look. Rode the elevator down in silence. I drove home with an empty trunk and a head full of thoughts I couldn't untangle. $2 million. Sitting in a vault somewhere. Under my name. Waiting. For what, I didn't know. But something told me this was only the beginning. The weeks after returning Sandro's money should have been peaceful. Should have meant the end of our story. Stranger saves. Stranger. Stranger tries to pay. Stranger refuses. Everyone moves on. Instead, my car broke down 3 days later. I came out of my marine biology lab at the university. I taught 2 classes a week to supplement the research station income, and found my Honda dead in the parking lot. Battery, alternator, something expensive I couldn't afford to fix. I called a tow truck, resigned myself to bus schedules and ride-sharing apps, and went home exhausted. The next morning, my car was in my apartment parking spot. Not just fixed, detailed. A note tucked under the wiper. Transportation is important for saving lives. Consider this an investment in future rescues. AV. I should have been angry. Should have marched back to that hospital and thrown his keys at him. Instead, I drove to work and pretended I didn't notice how smoothly the engine ran. 2 days after that, my ancient lab equipment at the research station malfunctioned. The spectrophotometer I'd been babying for 3 years finally gave up. The station director said budget wouldn't cover a replacement until next fiscal year. The following Monday, a brand new spectrophotometer appeared, top of the line. Delivered with paperwork citing an anonymous research grant that didn't exist in any database I could find. I knew it was him. But the thing that finally broke my resolve wasn't about me at all. Flowers appeared at Danny's hospital room. Massive arrangement. Exotic blooms I couldn't name. A card in elegant script. For the person who made the hero. Get well. A grateful stranger. I found out when Danny called me, wheezing with laughter through his oxygen tube. Your mafia boss has good taste in flowers. He's not my anything, I said, gripping my phone too hard. He sent flowers to a sick guy he's never met because that sick guy is your person. That's romance novel behavior, Sai. That's stalking behavior. Same thing in a good romance. Danny coughed, the wet rattle I'd learned to dread. Seriously, though, these are beautiful. Made the nurses cry. Tell him thank you. I'll tell him to stop, but I didn't. Not right away. Because seeing Danny smile, really smile, not the brave hospital smile he wore for doctors, made something in my chest crack open. That evening, I was working my second job. 3 nights a week I waitressed at Rosalie's Diner, a 24-hour place near the hospital where the tips were decent and the coffee was terrible. It paid Danny's medication copays and kept the lights on, and I'd gotten good at functioning on 4 hours of sleep. I was refilling coffee for a regular when the bell above the door chimed. Sandro walked in like he owned the place. He didn't. Rosalie's was linoleum floors and cracked vinyl booths and the smell of fryer oil that never quite left your clothes. It was the opposite of everywhere Sandro Vitale belonged, and yet he crossed the room with the same confidence he'd probably used in boardrooms and crime dens, slid into a booth in my section, and waited. My coworker, Jenna, 19 and perpetually boy-crazy, nearly dropped her tray. That's the hottest man I've ever seen in real life. Is he looking at you? Unfortunately. I grabbed a coffee pot, steeled myself, and walked over. What are you doing here? Eating? He picked up the laminated menu, studied it like it was fascinating. What do you recommend? Going somewhere else. There's a 5-star restaurant 2 blocks over. Much more your speed. But you don't work there. He set down the menu, met my eyes. Coffee, please. Black. I poured it without a word. He wouldn't drink it. I knew that. The coffee here was worse than research station sludge. "You found Danny," I said quietly. "You made it easy, and you won't accept help directly, so I'm helping indirectly." "That's still manipulation, is it?" He leaned back, winced slightly, still healing. "I sent flowers to someone who's sick. I fixed your car because you need reliable transportation. I replaced equipment so you could do the work you love. Which part of that is manipulative?" "The part where you looked into my life without permission. The part where you're inserting yourself into my world. I'm not trying to pay you off." His voice dropped, quiet enough that only I could hear over the diner noise. "I died on that yacht, Sienna. You brought me back. I don't know how to exist knowing someone saved me and won't let me repay it. But I'm learning. So tell me your rules, and I'll follow them." The sincerity in his voice caught me off guard. This dangerous man with his expensive suits and his enemies who planted bombs was asking permission, asking for boundaries. I should have told him to leave. Instead, I found myself sitting down across from him, technically against diner policy. But Rosalie was in the back, and I needed this conversation. "Fine. 1 question per day. Any question you want. I'll answer honestly. That's the debt. Paid in truth, not money." His smile was slow and devastating. "Deal. First question, why marine biology?" So I told him. About Danny at 6 years old, splashing in the community pool during free swim day while I watched from the shallow end. About the moment I'd looked away. "I was 15, I said, staring at the coffee I'd poured for myself but couldn't drink. And I decided that day I'd never be helpless around water again. I'd master it, understand it, make sure if someone was drowning, I could save them." Sandro listened like it was scripture. Didn't interrupt. Didn't offer meaningless platitudes. When I finished, he said quietly, "You've been saving him your whole life. And now I'm drowning in medical debt trying to keep him alive. Cystic fibrosis doesn't care how good I am at CPR." I met his eyes. "So your money doesn't free me. It just makes me feel guilty for being too proud to take it." He reached across the table, covered my hand with his. Warm, solid. "Then let me help in ways that don't feel like payment. Let me be your friend. Someone who understands what it's like to carry weight alone." "We're not friends. Not yet." His thumb traced my knuckles, light and devastating. "But we could be." Jenna appeared with the subtlety of a bulldozer. "Everything okay here, Sienna?" I pulled my hand back. "Fine. Just taking my break." "Sure you are." She winked, disappeared back to the counter. Sandro's smile turned amused. "Your coworker thinks I'm harassing you." "Are you?" "Yes, but respectfully." I laughed, couldn't help it. The absurdity of this moment, this man, this whole impossible situation finally cracked something loose. "You're insane." "Probably." He finished the coffee he'd never actually drunk, left cash on the table that was way too much for 1 cup. "Same time tomorrow?" "I don't work tomorrow." "Then the next day." He stood, moved with that careful precision of someone still healing. 1 question per day, Sienna. That's the deal. I plan to collect." He left before I could argue. I stared at the cash on the table, enough to cover my section's checks for the whole night, and wondered what I'd just agreed to. The question per day became our ritual. He showed up at the diner every shift I worked, ordered coffee he didn't drink, asked 1 question. "Biggest fear?" he asked one night. "That Danny will die and I'll be alone," I answered honestly. "Your turn. What's yours?" "That I'll die before I've done anything that matters." "You run a criminal empire. That matters." "Does it?" His expression was bleak. "I inherited violence, blood feuds and territory wars and enemies my father made before I was born. What have I actually built that's mine?" I didn't have an answer for that. Another night. What do you want that money can't buy? Time. The word came out rough. I want time with Danny, more time than cystic fibrosis is going to give us. I want to not count every day like it's borrowed. He looked at me like I'd said something profound. Time is the only currency that matters, says the man with infinite money. Money doesn't buy back minutes with people you love. Trust me, I've tried. My turn. Why did someone blow up your yacht? His jaw tightened. Generational blood feud. 20 years ago, my father killed Lorenzo Marchetti. Have you tried apologizing? Yes. He shot my messenger. Sandro's voice was flat, dead. Some debts can only be paid in blood. That's barbaric. That's my world. He met my eyes. I didn't choose it, but I can't leave it either. Too many people depend on me for protection. If I walk away, they die. So you're trapped. We're all trapped by something. His gaze was heavy. You're trapped by Danny's illness. I'm trapped by my father's sins. At least we're honest about our cages. The conversations bled into other places. He started appearing at the research station during my late shifts, bringing actual good coffee and sitting quietly while I worked on water samples. Never touching equipment, never interrupting. Just present. Don't you have mob business to run? I asked one night, calibrating the new spectrophotometer he'd definitely paid for. I have competent people. They handle things. He was reading a marine biology textbook he'd somehow acquired, actually reading it. Did you know seahorses mate for life? Yes, I have a degree in this. Right. Sorry. I'm trying to understand your world. Why? He looked up, expression serious. Because it matters to you. That makes it matter to me. Something in my chest flipped. I focused on the samples, tried to ignore the warmth spreading through my ribs. You're very persistent. Only about things that matter. 3 weeks into our ritual, he asked, "What would you do if you took the money?" I'd been expecting this question, dreading it. I don't know. Liar. His voice was gentle. You've thought about it every day since Matteo delivered those cases. So what would you do? I set down my coffee, looked at him directly. I'd pay for Danny's experimental treatment, the one insurance won't cover, the one that might give him 5 more years or 10 or maybe just 1, but any time is better than watching him die on the current timeline. Then take it. I can't. Why not? Because... My voice broke. I hated that, hated showing weakness. Because then what you did, saving you, becomes about money, becomes transactional. And I need it to mean something more than that. I need to know I'm the kind of person who saves someone because it's right, not because it's profitable. Sandro was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. You're the best person I've ever met. I'm really not. You are. He reached across the table. We were at the diner again, late night, empty except for us and the cook. And the money isn't payment. It's a gift. Because I want you to have options, security, time with your brother. That's all. No strings, no debt. Just me, trying to do something good with blood money. You keep saying that. Blood money. That's what it is. Earned through violence and fear. Maybe if you take it, if you use it to save Danny, it becomes something clean. I stared at our hands, his covering mine, warm and solid and real. Keep it in your vault. I'm not ready yet, but I will be, eventually. Okay. He didn't push, just squeezed my hand once and let go. It'll be there, whenever you're ready. Even if that's never. The next night, Sandro didn't come to the diner. I told myself I wasn't disappointed, told myself it was better this way, that I needed distance from this dangerous man who was slowly becoming important to me. Then my phone rang during my shift. Unknown number. Hello? Sienna Walsh? A woman's voice. Professional. Cool. Yes? This is Rosa Delgado. Mr. Vitale asked me to inform you that he won't be able to meet you tonight. He's handling a business matter. Oh. Something cold settled in my stomach. Is he okay? A pause. He's fine. But there's been a complication with the Marchetti situation. He wanted you to know he's thinking of you. The line went dead before I could respond. I finished my shift on autopilot, drove home with my hands too tight on the wheel, and lay awake until sunrise wondering what complication meant. Wondering if Sandro was hurt. Wondering why it mattered so much. He showed up 2 days later at the research station. 3 a.m., my shift almost over, and suddenly he was there, leaning against the doorframe like he hadn't just disappeared for 48 hours. You're alive, I said, trying for casual and failing. Did you think I wasn't? Your assistant said complication. In your world, that probably means someone tried to kill you again. His expression softened. You were worried. Don't let it go to your head. I turned back to my water samples, mostly to hide my face. What happened? Lorenzo made a move, tried to hit one of my distribution points. We shut it down before anyone got hurt, but I had to deal with fallout. He moved closer, and I caught the scent of his cologne, cedar and something darker. I'm sorry I didn't call myself. Things got complicated. You don't owe me phone calls. I know, but I wanted to. Wanted to hear your voice. Make sure you were okay. I looked at him then. Really looked. He seemed tired. Older. Like the weight he carried had gotten heavier. Are you okay? Now I am. He smiled, small and real. My question for today. Will you come somewhere with me tomorrow? During the day, somewhere important. Where? Can't tell you. That would ruin the surprise, but I promise it's safe, and I think you'll appreciate it. I should have said no. Should have maintained boundaries that were already crumbling. Pick me up at 2, I heard myself say. And it better not be a jewelry store or a car dealership or anything ridiculous. Deal. His smile widened. Wear comfortable shoes. He left before I could change my mind. I finished my shift, drove home, and wondered what I was getting myself into. The next day, Sandro picked me up in a black SUV driven by Matteo. Sandro sat in the back, gestured for me to join him, and we drove through the city in comfortable silence. You're not going to tell me where we're going? Nope. He was relaxed, almost playful, a side of him I'd never seen. Patience, Sienna. We drove for 30 minutes, left the city behind, and pulled up to a hospital. My stomach dropped. Sandro, wait. He climbed out, offered his hand. Trust me. I took his hand, felt the warmth of it, the calluses that didn't match his expensive clothes, and let him lead me inside. Not to the main entrance, to a side building, newer, glass and steel and light. A sign over the entrance, the Vitale Foundation Center for Cystic Fibrosis Research. My breath caught. Sandro watched my face carefully. I told you the money was blood money, that I wanted to make it mean something. This is part of that. A research center dedicated to finding better treatments, maybe a cure. It opened 6 months ago. I thought you should see it. You built this? With money earned through violence, yes, but used for something good. He led me inside, and the place was gorgeous. State-of-the-art labs, comfortable patient rooms, researchers in white coats moving with purpose. The lead doctor is working on an experimental treatment protocol. Gene therapy combined with a new medication regimen. Early trials have been promising. How promising? Enough that I'd like Danny to be part of the next phase, if you agree. He turned to face me fully. No pressure, no strings, just an offer. Because if this treatment works, he gets more time. You get more time with him. My eyes burned. I refused to cry in the middle of this beautiful building that this dangerous man had built with blood money turned into hope. Why? Because you saved my life, and I can't save yours. You're too strong to need saving. But I can save Danny, and maybe that's enough. I kissed him. Didn't think about it. Didn't plan it. Just grabbed his collar and pulled him down and kissed him hard, tasting coffee and gratitude and something bigger than both of us. He froze for half a second. Then his arms came around me, solid and sure, and he kissed me back like I was oxygen and he was drowning. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. That wasn't the question for today, he said, voice rough. Consider it a bonus answer. His laugh was low, warm. Then my real question is, when can I take Danny to meet the research team? Tomorrow. We'll come tomorrow. I grabbed his hand, squeezed hard. Thank you. For this. For him. For everything. Thank me by letting me keep being part of your life. Deal. We went back to the SUV. Matteo didn't comment on our matching flushed faces or the way Sandro kept holding my hand. He just drove us back to the city while I leaned against Sandro's shoulder. Danny met the research team on a Tuesday. I'd worried he'd be too weak, too sick. But the moment he heard experimental treatment, something lit up in his eyes that I hadn't seen in months. Sandro picked us up from Danny's care facility, a nicer place than before, though I suspected Sandro had quietly upgraded that too. Danny was in a wheelchair, oxygen tube in place, but he was smiling, really smiling. So you're the drowning mafia boss, Danny said as Matteo helped him into the SUV. And you're the brother who made Sienna a hero. Sandro's voice was warm, genuine. I've been looking forward to meeting you. I bet. My sister talks about you constantly. Danny. My face went hot. It's fine, Sai. He should know you're obsessed with him. Danny winked at Sandro. She thinks about you 24/7. He's so annoying, Danny. He won't leave me alone, Danny. Translation. She's falling for you, and it terrifies her. Sandro's smile was devastating. Good to know. I wanted to die. Can we focus on the medical research instead of my alleged feelings? Alleged. Danny laughed, then coughed. Sure, sis. Alleged. The research center was even more impressive with Danny's perspective. He asked 1,000 questions about gene therapy protocols, about medication combinations, about success rates and side effects and timelines. The lead researcher, Dr. Sarah Chen, answered every single one with patience and enthusiasm. You're a perfect candidate for Phase 2, she said finally. Your genetic markers match the profile we're targeting, and your overall health, while compromised, is stable enough for the protocol. But I want you to understand. This is experimental. We've had promising results in Phase 1, but there are no guarantees. How promising? Danny asked. 60% of participants showed significant improvement in lung function. 40% experienced slowed disease progression. 2 participants reached stable remission. Danny looked at me, at Sandro, back to Dr. Chen. When can I start? We need full consent from you and your sister, full medical workup, and we'll need you here for the first month of treatment, inpatient monitoring. Done. Danny didn't hesitate. I'm in. See? I grabbed his hand. If you want this, we do it. I want it. I want time. More birthdays. More beaches I'm too sick to visit, but you describe anyway. More terrible reality TV marathons. More life. Then we do it. I turned to Dr. Chen. What do you need from us? The paperwork took 2 hours. By the end, my hand was cramping and Danny was exhausted, but we'd signed everything. Danny would start the treatment protocol in 3 days. On the drive back, Danny fell asleep against the window. Sandro reached across the seat, laced his fingers through mine. Thank you, I whispered. For what? for giving him hope, for building that place, for being the kind of man who turns blood money into something beautiful. I'm not beautiful, Sienna. I'm still the man Lorenzo wants dead, still running a criminal empire, still dangerous. I know. I squeezed his hand. But you're also the man who built a research center, who sends flowers to 6 strangers, who asks 1 question per day because I needed boundaries. That counts for something. Does it count enough? Enough for what? He looked at me directly. Enough for you to let me stay, in your life, in Danny's, past the debt, past gratitude, just stay. My heart did something complicated. You want to stay? I want everything with you, but I'll take whatever you're willing to give. I leaned across the seat, kissed him softly, carefully, because Danny was sleeping 10 inches away. Then stay. But know that my life is messy. Danny's treatment might not work. I have student loans and medical debt, and an apartment that smells like old carpet. I'm not your world, Sandro. You're better than my world. His thumb traced my cheekbone. You're real and honest, and you saved me in ways that have nothing to do with drowning. You're going to make me cry in front of Matteo. Matteo's seen worse. From the driver's seat. Can confirm. I laughed, pressed my face into Sandro's shoulder, and let myself believe this impossible thing might actually work. Danny started treatment 4 days later. I moved into the research center's family suite, a small apartment attached to the facility for relatives of inpatient participants. It was nicer than my actual apartment. Sandro visited every day, bringing food I forgot to eat, and sitting with Danny when I needed breaks I didn't want to take. The treatment was brutal. Gene therapy infusions that left Danny weak and nauseous. Medication regimens that required round-the-clock monitoring. Physical therapy to maintain lung function. But through it all, Danny kept his humor. If this works, he told me one night, hooked up to monitors, I want to visit the ocean. We'll make it happen, I promised. And I want Sandro there. He's part of this now, part of us. Yeah, I brushed hair off Danny's forehead. He really is. You love him. It wasn't a question. I didn't deny it. Yeah, I do. Good. He loves you too. I can tell by the way he looks at you. Like you're the only thing in the room that matters. Sleep, Danny. You need rest. I will. But sigh. His eyes were serious. Thank you for saving the mafia boss. I think he's saving us back. That night, I found Sandro in the family suite's tiny kitchen. He'd brought groceries, actual food, not hospital cafeteria mystery meals, and was cooking pasta like it was the most natural thing in the world. You cook? I have many hidden talents. He stirred sauce that smelled incredible. How's Danny? Tired, hopeful, grateful. I leaned against the counter. He says you're part of our family now. Sandro's hand stilled. Does he? Yeah. And he's right. You are. I moved closer, wrapped my arms around him from behind. Thank you for being here. For all of this. He turned in my arms, cupped my face. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. We ate pasta at midnight, talked about nothing important. Fell asleep tangled together on the couch because the bed felt too far away. For the first time in years, I wasn't drowning. I was floating. And Sandro was the reason why. Danny's treatment continued through September into October. The gene therapy infusions became routine, though watching my brother hooked up to IV lines never stopped making my chest tight. But something was changing. Subtle at first. His oxygen levels stabilized. The coughing fits that used to wake him at 3 a.m. became less frequent. Dr. Chen ran tests weekly, and each time her smile got wider. His lung function is improving, she told us on a gray Thursday morning. Not dramatically yet, but consistently. The genetic markers we're targeting are responding to the therapy. Danny squeezed my hand so hard I felt bones shift. So, it's working? It's too early to say definitively, but the trajectory is promising. We're cautiously optimistic. Cautiously optimistic felt like a miracle, after years of steadily declining. Sandro was there when we got the news. He'd become a fixture at the research center, showing up with coffee and pastries and quiet presence. Danny had started calling him the drowning mafia boss, with genuine affection, and Sandro took it with grace and humor I hadn't known he possessed. That night, after Danny fell asleep, Sandro and I walked the research center's grounds. They'd built a small garden, healing spaces Dr. Chen called them, with benches and night-blooming jasmine that smelled like hope. "He's getting better," I said, still not quite believing it. "Thanks to the treatment and his stubbornness. And you, keeping him alive long enough to get here." Sandro pulled me close, and I let myself lean into his warmth. "You saved us both, Sienna. That has to count for something." "I'm starting to think it does." I tilted my head up, studied his face in the moonlight. "My question for today. Do you regret this? Getting tangled up with a broke marine biologist and her sick brother? Your life would be simpler without us." "Simpler isn't better." His hand cupped my jaw, thumb tracing my cheekbone. "My life was empty before you, purposeless. I inherited violence and perpetuated it because I didn't know what else to do. But you showed me another way. Building instead of destroying. Saving instead of killing. You didn't just pull me from the water. You gave me a reason to stay alive. That's a lot of pressure to put on one person. Good thing you're strong enough to carry it." He kissed me then, slow and deep and devastating, tasting like coffee and promise. I kissed him back, let myself fall into the certainty that this dangerous man was mine, and I was his, and somehow, impossibly, we were making it work. We broke apart when someone cleared their throat nearby. Matteo, standing a respectful distance away, expression carefully neutral. "Sorry to interrupt, but we have a situation." Sandro's entire demeanor changed. The softness vanished, replaced by the cold command I'd seen glimpses of but never fully witnessed. "What kind of situation?" "Lorenzo Marchetti. He's made contact. Wants to meet." "Absolutely not." My voice was sharper than I intended. "He tried to kill you once. You're not walking into another trap." Sandro's expression softened slightly when he looked at me. "I have to. If Lorenzo's reaching out, it means he's planning something bigger. I need to know what." "Then send someone else. Matteo or—" "It has to be me. That's how this works." He turned back to Matteo. "When and where?" "Tomorrow night. Neutral ground. The old warehouse district. Set it up. Full security. And I want Rosa with Sienna and Danny while I'm gone." "Already arranged." Sandro looked at me, and I saw the apology in his eyes before he spoke. "I have to do this." I know. I hated it, but I understood. This was his world, the one he couldn't leave because too many people depended on him. "Just come back alive. Danny's already planning your presence at his first beach trip. Don't make a liar out of him." "I'll come back, I promise." He kissed my forehead, gentle and final. "Trust me." "I do. That's what scares me." The next day passed in agonizing slowness. Danny had physical therapy in the morning, working on lung capacity and endurance, and I sat through it with a smile plastered on my face while my brain spun worst-case scenarios. Rosa appeared around noon, a tall woman with kind eyes and a gun I definitely saw under her jacket. "Sandro sent you," I said. "He did. I'm here to make sure you and Danny stay safe while he handles business." She settled into a chair near Danny's room, unobtrusive but alert. "He cares about you. Both of you." "I know." I stared at my phone, willing it to ring with Sandro's voice telling me everything was fine. I just wish caring didn't mean walking into danger. That's his job, protecting people, even when it costs him. By 8 p.m., I was vibrating with anxiety. Danny noticed. Of course he did. My brother had always been able to read me, and called me into his room. "He'll be fine," Danny said. "Sandro's smart and careful, and he has a reason to come back now. You. That's not enough. People with reasons to live die all the time. But Sandro's not people. He's the guy who built a research center so I could get treatment. The guy who shows up every day with terrible coffee and sits with me during infusions. The guy who looks at you like you hung the moon." Danny grabbed my hand. "He's coming back, because he loves you, and you love him, and that matters." When did you get so wise? Somewhere between the third gene therapy session and the existential crisis at 4 a.m. Tuesday. He grinned. "Also, I may have watched too many romance movies while you were sleeping." I laughed despite everything. "You're impossible. I'm your brother. It's my job." His expression turned serious. "But Sai, if something does happen, if this treatment works and I get better, you have to promise me you'll let yourself be happy. With Sandro. Or someone else. Or alone. Whatever makes you feel whole. You've spent 15 years saving me. It's time someone saved you back. Danny, promise me." "I promise." The words came out rough. "But nothing's happening to him. He's fine. He's coming back." "Okay. Then go wait in the lounge. Pace. Stress eat the good snacks Rosa brought." I kissed his forehead, left him to rest, and went to the lounge to slowly lose my mind. Sandro's meeting with Lorenzo happened at 10 p.m., in a warehouse that smelled like rust and old violence. Matteo and 3 other men flanked him, armed, alert, ready for betrayal. Lorenzo arrived with his own security, a mirror image of dangerous men in expensive suits. Lorenzo Marchetti was handsome in a way that made you think of snakes, sleek and cold and predatory. He smiled when he saw Sandro, but there was no warmth in it. "Vitale, you look well for a dead man. Thanks to good rescue and better luck." Sandro kept his voice neutral, gave nothing away. "You wanted to meet. Here I am. Talk." "Straight to business. No pleasantries?" Lorenzo circled slowly, predator assessing prey. "I suppose that's wise. We both know what this is. A continuation of a blood feud your father started and mine finished. But you didn't call this meeting to reminisce. What do you want?" "I want you to suffer the way my family suffered. I want you to lose everything that matters." Lorenzo's smile widened. "And I've found the perfect way to make that happen." Ice slid down Sandro's spine. "If you touch Sienna or her brother, I will burn your entire organization to the ground. No mercy, no survivors, just ash." There it is. The weakness I was looking for. Lorenzo stopped circling, stood directly across from Sandro with 5 feet and 20 years of hatred between them. "You love her, the little marine biologist who pulled you from the water. How poetic. How perfectly destructive." "She's off limits." Sandro's voice was cold. Dead. The voice that made grown men flinch. "This is between us. Our father's sins. Leave her out of it." "But that's not how vendettas work, is it? Your father didn't just kill mine. He destroyed my family. My mother never recovered. My sister disappeared into grief. I grew up in the shadow of that violence. And now it's your turn." Lorenzo pulled out a phone, showed Sandro a photo. Danny, at the research center. Taken from a distance, but unmistakably him. The sick brother. How tragic. How fragile. One small accident. And your precious Sienna loses everything. Sandro moved before thought, crossed the distance, had Lorenzo by the throat, gun pressed to his temple. Matteo and the others drew weapons. Lorenzo's men did the same, and suddenly the warehouse was a powder keg waiting for a spark. "Breathe wrong, and you die," Sandro said quietly. "Threaten them again, and I don't care who's watching or what treaties are broken. I will end you here and now." Lorenzo laughed. Actually laughed despite the gun to his head. "Do it. Pull the trigger. Prove you're exactly like your father. A killer. A monster. And watch your marine biologist look at you differently when she finds out you murdered someone in cold blood." The truth of it hit like a punch. Sandro could kill Lorenzo right now. End the threat permanently. But Sienna would know. Would see the violence he'd tried to keep separate from her world. Would look at him and see the monster he was trying not to be. He lowered the gun. Stepped back. "You don't touch them," he said, voice raw. "But I'll give you what you want. A real end to this. Not my father's coward peace. A true resolution. You and me. Name the terms. But Danny and Sienna stay out of it." Lorenzo rubbed his throat, smile gone. "You'd risk everything for a woman you've known 3 months?" "Yes." Pathetic. But there was something like respect in Lorenzo's eyes now. "Fine. Here are my terms. You have 1 month to dismantle the Vitale family's role in my father's territory. Everything your family took from mine, you return. Businesses, properties, control. You make it right. That's half my operation. That's the price of keeping them safe. 1 month. Or I take everything you love and burn it to ash while you watch." Sandro's jaw tightened. A month to dismantle half his empire, to undo his father's work, to weaken everything he'd built. But if it kept Sienna and Danny safe? Deal. But if you break your word, the deal's off. Agreed. Lorenzo straightened his jacket, cold smile returning. 1 month, Vitale. Starting now. He left with his men. The warehouse emptied. Matteo holstered his gun, turned to Sandro with carefully blank expression. "That was a mistake. I know. He could have been bluffing. He wasn't." Sandro stared at the photo Lorenzo had left behind. Danny, smiling, unaware someone had marked him for leverage. He had surveillance. On them. On the research center. He's serious. "So what do? We start dismantling. Tonight. And I tell Sienna the truth. That I'm destroying everything my father built to keep her brother safe. She deserves to know what I'm risking. She'll tell you not to do it. I know. That's why I'm doing it anyway." Sandro showed up at the research center at midnight. I'd been pacing the lounge for hours, coffee-wired and terrified, and the moment I saw him, I knew something was wrong. "You're alive." Relief made my knees weak. For now. He looked exhausted, older, like he'd aged years in one night. "We need to talk." Rosa quietly excused herself. Sandro led me to the family suite, closed the door, and told me everything. Lorenzo's threat. The photo of Danny. The deal he'd made. Half his empire in exchange for our safety. "You can't do that," I said when he finished, voice shaking. "That's your whole world. Your business. It's also blood money built on violence." He cupped my face, made me look at him. "I told you once I wanted to make it mean something. This is how. I tear down my father's empire and use the pieces to keep you and Danny safe. That's worth more than any territory or business deal. Sandro, I'm not arguing about this. Lorenzo gave me a month. I'll spend it dismantling operations, returning territory, making sure every loose end is tied up. And when it's done, I'll have less power, less money, less of everything except what matters. You and Danny alive and safe." Tears burned my eyes. "You'd give up everything for us?" Without hesitation. His thumb caught a tear before it could fall. "You saved my life, Sienna. Let me save yours." I kissed him then, desperate and grateful and terrified of what this might cost him. He kissed back like I was oxygen, and he'd been drowning again. We broke apart, breathing hard. "Stay tonight," I whispered. "Please, I need to know you're okay." "I'm staying." He gathered me close, held me like I was precious. "I'm not going anywhere." We fell asleep tangled together on the couch, the weight of his sacrifice settling heavy between us. The next month was chaos. Sandro worked around the clock dismantling operations, shutting down businesses, transferring properties, negotiating exits from deals his father had made decades ago. I watched him give away piece after piece of his empire and tried not to feel guilty. "You're thinking too loud," he said one night, both of us exhausted in the family suite after another endless day. "I'm ruining your life. You're saving it. There's a difference." He pulled me into his lap, wrapped arms around me that trembled slightly from exhaustion. "Everything I'm giving up was built on violence, fear, my father's sins. Letting it go feels like freedom. Freedom that costs you everything. Not everything. I still have you, Danny, Matteo, and Rosa, and the people who matter. The rest is just territory on a map." That's a very romantic way of saying you're becoming significantly less powerful. I prefer strategically downsizing. His smile was tired but real. "And honestly, I'm sleeping better than I have in years. Turns out constant worry about assassination attempts is bad for rest." I laughed despite everything. "You're insane. You love me anyway." "I do." The admission came easily now. "I love you, even though you're making terrible business decisions to keep me safe. Best terrible decision I've ever made." He kissed my temple, gentle and sure. "You're worth more than any empire." In the third week, Danny's test results came back with news that made Dr. Chen actually cry. His lung function had improved by 30%. The genetic markers we're targeting showed sustained positive response. He was, for the first time in a decade, stable. "Does this mean I'm in remission?" Danny asked, gripping my hand tight enough to bruise. "Not yet, but we're heading that direction. If this trajectory continues, we'll start talking about long-term management instead of crisis care." Dr. Chen's smile was radiant. "Danny, you're responding to the treatment better than anyone in our trial. You're the success story we've been hoping for." Danny looked at me, at Sandro, who'd shown up with celebratory cupcakes before we even knew the results, at the research center his treatment had funded, and started crying. "I'm not dying," he said through tears. "I'm actually not dying." "You're not dying," I confirmed, crying too. "You're getting better." Sandro pulled us both into a hug, gentle with Danny, fierce with me. "Told you the treatment would work." "You had no way of knowing that." "I had hope. That counts for something." That night, after Danny fell asleep smiling, Sandro took me to the garden. The jasmine was blooming again, night air sweet with promise. "1 week left on Lorenzo's deadline," he said quietly. "I've transferred everything except 2 holdings. Those transfer tomorrow. Then it's done." "And then what?" "Then Lorenzo leaves us alone. The vendetta ends, and I figure out who Alessandro Vitale is when he's not his father's son." "Who do you want to be?" He thought about it. "Someone who builds instead of destroys. Someone who protects people the right way. Not through fear, but through choice. Someone worthy of you." "You're already worthy of me, you idiot. You've been worthy since you opened your eyes on my boat and fought to stay alive." I grabbed his collar, pulled him down to eye level. "I don't care about your empire or your power. I care about you, the man who sends flowers to 6 strangers, who asks 1 question per day, who's giving up everything to keep my brother safe. That's who you are, and that's who I love." His eyes went bright. "I love you too, so much it terrifies me." "Good. Terror keeps you sharp." I kissed him then, claiming and sure. My question for today: when this is over, when Lorenzo's satisfied and the vendetta ends, what do you want? You. A life with you. Watching Danny get better. Maybe teaching marine biology part-time since I'll need a job now. His smile was self-deprecating. Think they'd hire a reformed mafia boss? Probably not. But they might hire an anonymous philanthropist with extensive marine conservation interests. I like how you think. We stayed in the garden until dawn, planning a future that seemed impossible a month ago. A future where Sandro wasn't drowning in his father's violence, where Danny wasn't dying from cystic fibrosis, where I wasn't carrying the weight of both alone. A future we were building together. The final transfer happened on a cold November morning. Sandro signed away the last 2 properties, lucrative businesses his father had killed to acquire, and sent the paperwork to Lorenzo through neutral third parties. By noon, it was done. Half the Vitale empire, dismantled and redistributed in 30 days. Lorenzo called at 1 p.m. Sandro put it on speaker so I could hear. It's done. Everything you demanded. We're even. We'll see. Lorenzo's voice was cold, calculating. I'll verify the transfers. If everything's in order, the vendetta ends. You and your marine biologist get to live your little fairy tale. But Vitale? What? Your father took everything from me. You gave it back, but that doesn't make us friends. Stay out of my territory. Don't rebuild what you tore down. And if I ever see you as a threat again, the deal's off. Understood. Same terms apply to you. Sienna and Danny stay off limits. Forever. Not for a month. Not for a year. Forever. Done. Lorenzo hung up. Sandro set down the phone, closed his eyes, and exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for 30 days. It's over. Is it really? As over as vendettas get. Lorenzo got what he wanted. His father's territory back, my empire crippled, my father's work undone. He has no reason to come after us now, and if he does anyway, then I fight with everything I have left. But I don't think he will. Lorenzo's smart. He knows I gave him more than most men would. That has to count for something. I pulled him close, felt the tension slowly draining from his shoulders. What do we do now? Now? He smiled, tired but real. Now we figure out what normal looks like. Together. The week after the vendetta ended, Danny was cleared for outpatient treatment. He could leave the research center, go home, wherever home was now, and continue therapy through regular visits instead of full-time monitoring. I want to see the ocean, he told Dr. Chen during his final inpatient checkup. Not through windows or videos, the actual ocean, before my next treatment cycle. You're stable enough for that, but keep it low-key. No deep diving or strenuous activity. Wading, shallow swimming if you're feeling strong, and someone with medical training should be present. Danny looked at me. Sees a marine biologist with rescue certifications. Does that count? That absolutely counts. Dr. Chen grinned. Go see your ocean, Danny. You've earned it. Sandro arranged everything. A private beach at a property he'd somehow kept despite the dismantling. A small house on the coast that he'd bought with personal money years ago, separate from family business. We drove there on a Saturday morning, Danny in the back seat with oxygen tank and enough medication to stock a pharmacy, chattering about fish species and tidal patterns like a kid on Christmas. When we pulled up to the beach, Danny went silent. The ocean stretched before us, gray-blue and endless, waves rolling in perfect rhythm. The beach was empty except for us. Private, safe, beautiful. It's real, Danny whispered. I'm actually here. You're actually here. I grabbed his hand, felt him shaking. Ready? So ready. We helped him out of the car. He was walking better now, stronger, but still careful with energy. The 3 of us made our way down to the sand, and Danny stopped at the water's edge, staring at waves that lapped at his shoes. I never thought I'd feel this, he said quietly. Sand under my feet, salt in the air, the sound of waves instead of heart monitors. Sandro and I stayed quiet, let him have the moment. Then Danny stepped forward, into the water, ankle deep, then knee deep, laughing as waves soaked his shorts. I stayed next to him, ready to catch him if he stumbled, but he was steady, strong, alive. "This is because of you," he told Sandro, waves breaking around us. "You built the research center, funded my treatment, gave up your empire so I could stand here today. Thank you doesn't even begin to cover it." "You don't owe me thanks." Sandro's voice was rough. "You're Sienna's family, that makes you mine, and family protects family." Danny pulled him into a hug, unexpected and fierce. "You're a good man, drowning mafia boss. Don't let anyone tell you different." We spent 2 hours at the beach. Danny waded and collected shells and sat in the shallow water like he was memorizing the feeling. Sandro and I watched from the sand, fingers tangled together. "He's going to make it," I said quietly. "Really make it. Thanks to the treatment, and his strength, and you, never giving up on him. And you, building the center, funding the research, staying even when it got hard." I turned to face him fully. "You gave us this moment, this future. How do I ever repay that?" "You already did. You saved my life. Everything else is just me trying to be worthy of that gift." I kissed him there on the beach, with my brother laughing in the waves and the ocean that had almost taken Sandro now giving Danny back to me. It felt like redemption, like hope, like the ending we'd fought for. When the sun started setting, we drove back to the city. Danny fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted but smiling. Sandro drove with one hand on the wheel, the other holding mine. "What comes next?" I asked. "I've been thinking about that. The Vitale Foundation, the research center, is still mine. I want to expand it. More diseases, more experimental treatments, more families like yours getting second chances. That's a lot of work. I have time now. No empire to run. No territories to defend. Just purpose. Real purpose." He glanced at me, smile soft. "And I want you with me. Not just as my partner, but as part of it. You understand the science. The ocean. The drive to save people. We could build something good together. You're offering me a job. I'm offering you everything. A life, a partnership, a chance to save people the way you saved me." He pulled over, parked on a quiet street, turned to face me fully. "I love you, Sienna. I want to spend the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of that. Will you let me?" My heart did something complicated and wonderful. Yes, to all of it. The foundation, the partnership, you. I grabbed his collar, pulled him close. "I love you too, and I'm done fighting it." He kissed me like he'd been waiting his whole life for permission. Deep and claiming and tender all at once. We broke apart when Danny's sleepy voice came from the back seat. "About time you two admitted it. Can we go home now? I'm tired and you're being gross." We laughed, drove the rest of the way in comfortable silence, and I realized home wasn't a place anymore. It was this. Sandro and Danny and the future we were building together. That night, after Danny was settled in his new apartment, nicer than anywhere we'd lived before, close to the research center for treatments, Sandro and I ended up at his penthouse, the one overlooking the ocean where I'd saved him. We stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching moonlight paint the water silver. "I used to hate this view," Sandro said quietly. Reminder of how close I came to dying. But now it's where I came back to life, where I found you, where everything changed. He turned to me, eyes dark and serious. "I want to show you something, if you're ready." My heart kicked. What? Trust. Vulnerability. everything I am without the walls. He led me to his bedroom. Huge space, expensive furniture, view of the ocean through more windows. He closed the door, and suddenly the air felt charged. "I'm ready," I said. "For all of it." We undressed each other slowly. His hands on my shoulders, sliding fabric away. My fingers tracing scars on his chest. Knife wounds, bullet grazes, the fresh pink line from the yacht explosion that I'd stitched back together. Evidence of violence that had tried to take him from me. "These are part of you," I whispered, touching each scar. "Your history, your survival. I love them because they prove you fought to stay alive." He shuddered under my touch. "You see me, really see me, not the empire or the power. Just me. Just you. And you're enough." We moved to the bed, and for a moment everything was perfect. His mouth on mine, hands exploring, heat building between us. He was careful with me, reverent, like I was precious, and I let myself fall into the sensation. Then the panic hit. Not physical, psychological. Suddenly I was back in the burning water, debris everywhere, his dead weight in my arms. The terror I hadn't let myself feel that night, that I'd fail, that he'd sink, crashed over me like a wave. My hands started shaking. Breathing went shallow. I couldn't catch air. "Sienna?" Sandra's voice cut through the panic. "What's wrong?" I can't breathe." The room was spinning. The ocean view through the windows felt too close, too threatening. "I'm back in the water. You're dying. I can't save you." He moved instantly, rolled away, wrapped me in blankets, put distance between us and the windows. "You're safe. You're here. I'm alive. Look at me." I looked, focused on his face. "Breathe with me," he said calmly, though I could see his own hands shaking. "In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, with me." I followed his breathing. Slowly the panic receded. The room stopped spinning. "I'm sorry," I gasped. "I wanted this. I want you. But I can't stop seeing you in the water, dead. And Stop." He cupped my face gently. "You don't apologize for this. Ever. You saved my life. You're allowed to process the trauma of that, and I'm allowed to wait until you're ready. I want you safe, comfortable, happy. Everything else can wait." He pulled back completely, sat beside me on the bed, fully clothed again in seconds. "Let me take care of you now. That's what matters." He made tea with shaking hands. He was terrified too, I realized, scared he'd pushed too hard. Sat beside me on the couch away from the ocean view, and wrapped me in warmth and presence. Told me stories about the first time he'd met Danny, how my brother had called him out for being obvious. When I woke the next morning, Sandra was watching me. "How are you feeling?" "Embarrassed, frustrated, sorry." "Don't be any of those things. You froze because your brain is processing trauma. That's healthy, normal, and I'm not going anywhere. I want to be ready. I want to show you I'm not broken." "You're not broken. You're healing. There's a difference." He kissed my forehead, gentle and sure. "And when you are ready, really ready, I'll be here. I'm not in a hurry." 3 days later, I showed up at his penthouse at midnight. He opened the door, surprised. "Sienna? What?" "I'm ready." I stepped inside, closed the door behind me. For real this time. No panic, no fear, just us. He searched my face. "Are you sure?" I spent 3 days thinking about it, working through it. The panic wasn't about you. It was about losing you. But I'm not losing you. You're here. You're mine. And I'm ready to claim that. His smile was slow and devastating. "Then come here." This time, there was no panic. just heat and certainty, and the feeling of coming home. We undressed each other slowly, reverent, careful, claiming every scar and vulnerability. He traced the calluses on my hands from years of lab work and rescue training. I kissed the scars on his chest from years of violence he was leaving behind. "I love you," I whispered against his skin. "I love you too." His hands were steady now, confident. "You saved my life, Sienna. Tonight, let me show you what that means to me." We moved together like waves, rhythm built from trust and patience and finally being ready. The ocean view didn't scare me now. It was symbolic. The water that almost took him, the water I'd mastered, the water that brought us together. When we finished, we lay facing each other, foreheads touching, hearts sinking. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For trusting me, for being brave enough to try again, for letting me prove I'd wait forever if you needed." 2 weeks later, Lorenzo Marchetti appeared at the research center. I saw him first, walking through the lobby like he owned it, expensive suit and predatory smile. Ice flooded my veins. Rosa moved to intercept, but I waved her off. "What are you doing here?" My voice was cold, hard. "Relax, Dr. Walsh. I'm not here for violence." Lorenzo's smile was ugly. "I'm here to deliver a message." "Then deliver it and leave." "The vendetta is over." Sandro kept his word, dismantled everything I demanded. I got what I wanted. He stepped closer, and I fought not to flinch. "But I wanted you to know something." "What?" "Your mafia boss gave up everything for you. His empire, his power, his father's legacy. All because I threatened you and your brother." Lorenzo's eyes were cold, calculating. "That kind of weakness is pathetic, but it's also admirable. He loves you more than he loves power. That's rare in our world." "Is there a point to this?" "The point is, I'm leaving you alone, permanently. Not because I'm merciful, but because Sandro paid the debt. The blood feud is settled. You get to live your little fairy tale." He turned to leave, paused at the door. "But if Sandro ever becomes a threat again, if he rebuilds, if he steps into my territory, if he so much as looks at me wrong, the deal's off, and I'll finish what I started, understand?" "Perfectly. Now get out." He left without another word. I found him in his office at the Foundation headquarters. New space, smaller than his old empire, focused entirely on medical research and philanthropy. He looked up when I entered, saw my face, and immediately crossed to me. "What happened?" I told him about Lorenzo's visit, the confirmation that the vendetta was truly over, the threat that lingered beneath the peace. "He's done with us," I finished. "As long as you don't rebuild or threaten him." Sandro pulled me close, held me tight. "I have no interest in rebuilding. The old empire was my father's. This, the Foundation, you, Danny, building something good, is mine. Lorenzo can have his territory. I have everything that matters right here. You gave up so much for us. I gave up violence for peace, blood money for clean purpose, my father's sins for my own choices." He cupped my face. "That's not loss. That's freedom. And I got it because you showed me a better way." We went to tell Danny together, and when my brother heard that the vendetta was over, that Lorenzo had walked away, that we were finally safe, he cried. Happy tears, grateful tears, tears for the future he was getting because a mafia boss had chosen love over power. "You did it," Danny told Sandro, gripping his hand tight. "You actually did it. Saved us. Thank you. Thank your sister. She's the one who pulled me from the water and gave me a reason to become someone better." 1 year later, Danny stood on the same private beach where he'd first felt the ocean. This time, He was running. Actually running. No oxygen tank, no wheelchair, no careful steps. Dr. Chen had declared him in full remission 3 months ago, and every day since had been a gift. Sandro and I watched from the sand, sitting close enough that our shoulders touched. "He's going to wear himself out," I said. "Let him. He's earned it." Sandro pulled me closer. The Vitali Foundation had expanded. 3 new research centers across the country, all focused on rare diseases and experimental treatments. Sandro ran them with the same intensity he'd once used for criminal enterprise, except now he was building instead of destroying. I joined as Director of Marine Biology Research, a position Sandro had created specifically for me, focused on ocean-based medical breakthroughs. It was everything I'd dreamed of and more. "My question for today," Sandro said quietly. "Are you happy?" Deliriously. "You?" "More than I ever thought possible." He turned to face me fully. "I have one more question, though. A big one." "What?" He pulled out a small box, velvet, clearly expensive, opened it to reveal a ring, simple, elegant, a single diamond that caught the sunlight and threw rainbows. "Sienna Walsh, you saved my life, then you saved my soul. Will you marry me?" My breath caught. Tears blurred my vision. "Yes. God, yes. 1,000 times yes." He slipped the ring on my finger. Perfect fit, like he'd measured while I slept, and kissed me deep enough to make Danny whistle from the water. "About time," my brother yelled. "I was starting to think you'd never ask." We laughed, pulled apart, waved at Danny, who was grinning like this was his personal victory. "When did you plan this?" I asked, staring at the ring. 3 months ago. I was waiting for the right moment." Sandro kissed my temple. "Turns out the right moment is watching your brother run on a beach he should have never lived to see, knowing we gave him that, knowing we built this together." "We did, didn't we? Built something good out of tragedy. The best things come from surviving the worst." He stood, pulled me up with him. "Come on. Let's tell Danny he's going to be the best man at our wedding." We ran down to the water together, the 3 of us, chosen family, saved and saving each other in turn. Danny tackled us both into a hug, laughing and crying and alive. The ocean that had almost taken Sandro now gave us Danny back. The money that had been blood-stained now funded research that saved lives. The mafia boss who'd inherited violence now built healing. And I, the marine biologist who'd spent 15 years preparing to save someone, had found my future. Some debts can't be paid with money. Some are paid with time, with trust, with choosing love over power. Some are paid with breath and heartbeat, and the simple miracle of still being alive. Sandro had offered me $2 million for saving his life. Instead, I took his heart, his future, his chance to become someone better. And in return, he gave me Danny's life, our foundation. A love built on rescue and redemption. That was worth more than any amount of cash.